When a cruel prank at the office turns into a public spectacle of racism, one woman's humiliation becomes the catalyst for justice and revenge, courtesy of her billionaire husband. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. It was supposed to be just another day at work for Michelle Thompson, a hard-working and dedicated employee at one of the largest marketing firms in New York City. Michelle was known for her professionalism, sharp intellect, and ability to navigate even the most challenging workplace dynamics with grace. But on this particular afternoon, everything changed in an instant. As she sat at her desk preparing for an important client presentation, a group of colleagues approached her station. What happened next would leave everyone stunned. Without warning, someone from the group hurled a can of Coca-Cola directly at Michelle, drenching her blouse and scattering papers across her desk. The room fell silent as gasps echoed through the office. Some co-workers looked away, embarrassed by what they had witnessed, while others snickered under their breath. For Michelle, it wasn't just about the soda soaking her clothes. It was the blatant disrespect and racism behind the act that cut deep. She stood there frozen, trying to process the humiliation unfolding before her very eyes. As words spread like wildfire throughout the office, whispers filled the air. Some employees condemned the act, calling it unacceptable and racially motivated, while others dismissed it as just a joke. Management quickly swept into damage control mode, offering vague apologies and promises of investigation. But Michelle knew better. This wasn't the first time she'd faced microaggressions or outright hostility at work. It was simply the most public and egregious example yet. Her phone buzzed incessantly as friends and family reached out to check on her. Among those messages was one from her husband, Marcus Thompson, a self-made billionaire entrepreneur who had built his empire from the ground up. When Michelle recounted the events of the day, Marcus's blood boiled. He couldn't believe that his wife, the love of his life, had been treated so cruelly in a place where she worked tirelessly to contribute and succeed. Marcus immediately assured Michelle that he would handle the situation personally. Though she tried to convince him to let her deal with it through proper channels, Marcus was resolute. "No one treats my queen like that," he texted back. And with that, plans were set in motion. The next morning, the office buzzed with nervous energy. Rumors swirled that Marcus Thompson himself might show up to address the incident. Most employees dismissed it as gossip. After all, why would a man worth billions take time out of his busy schedule to step foot in their mid-level corporate office? But sure enough, around 10 a.m., the elevator doors opened, and Marcus walked in, flanked by two imposing bodyguards and a team of lawyers. Dressed in a tailored navy blue suit, Marcus exuded power and authority. His presence commanded attention, and within seconds, every employee in the office had stopped what they were doing to stare. The CEO of the company rushed over to greet him, extending a hand and stammering nervously. Marcus ignored the gesture, brushing past the executive without so much as a glance. He made a beeline for Michelle's desk, where she sat quietly, still reeling from the previous day's ordeal. As he approached, he knelt beside her chair, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice full of concern. Michelle nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. Marcus kissed her forehead before standing tall, turning to face the sea of stunned faces staring back at him. The air in the office was thick with tension as Marcus Thompson stood tall, his commanding presence silencing every whisper and murmur. The employees who had been nervously chatting about his unexpected arrival now found themselves frozen in place, their eyes glued to the billionaire whose reputation for being both ruthless and fair preceded him. After kneeling beside Michelle to ensure she was okay, Marcus rose to his full height, his piercing gaze sweeping across the room like a storm ready to unleash its fury. It was clear that this wasn't just a visit, it was an intervention. Marcus began speaking, his voice calm but laced with authority, each word landing like a hammer blow. "I'm here today because something utterly unacceptable happened in this building yesterday," he said, his tone leaving no room for debate. He didn't raise his voice, yet it carried a weight that made everyone feel as though they were being addressed individually. "My wife, a brilliant, talented, and beautiful black woman, was humiliated in front of all of you. Not only did no one stop it, but some of you laughed. Some of you encouraged it." His words hung heavy in the air, forcing those involved to confront the gravity of their actions, or inactions. As he continued, Marcus's demeanor shifted slightly, his anger becoming more pronounced. "Let me make one thing crystal clear," he declared, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Racism has no place in any workplace, especially not one that claims to value diversity and inclusion. If you think throwing a drink on someone because of the color of their skin is funny, then you don't deserve to have a job anywhere, let alone here." His declaration sent shockwaves through the room. Employees exchanged uneasy glances, realizing that this wasn't going to end with a simple apology or slap on the wrist. This was personal for Marcus, and he wasn't backing down. With unwavering resolve, Marcus turned his attention to the CEO, who had been standing awkwardly nearby, unsure of how to navigate the situation. The executive's attempts to maintain composure crumbled under Marcus's steely gaze. "Effective immediately," Marcus instructed, his voice cold and unyielding. "I want every single person involved in this incident fired. That includes anyone who participated, condoned, or turned a blind eye to what happened. If you can't treat people with basic human decency, you're done." The CEO opened his mouth to protest, but Marcus cut him off before he could utter a word. "Don't worry," he added, his lips curling into a faint smirk. "If you refuse, I'll buy this company and fire every last one of you myself." The threat wasn't empty. Everyone in the room knew Marcus had the means and influence to follow through. Within moments, the HR department sprang into action, summoning the individuals directly involved in the incident to the conference room. And, by one, they were called out of their cubicles, their faces pale with fear and regret as they realized the consequences of their actions. By noon, the firings were complete. Those responsible for the attack and those who had failed to intervene were escorted out of the building, their careers left in tatters. For the remaining employees, the message was clear. Accountability was non-negotiable. Marcus's actions weren't just about punishing wrongdoing, they were about sending a powerful statement. Racism and discrimination would not be tolerated, not in this workplace, and not anywhere else where he had influence. As he stood beside Michelle, holding her hand firmly in his, Marcus looked out at the sea of faces still lingering in the office. "Change starts now," he said, his voice softer but no less resolute. "If you stay here, you do so knowing that respect and integrity are non-negotiable. Choose wisely." In that moment, justice wasn't just served, it was delivered with precision and purpose. Marcus's intervention didn't just protect Michelle, it dismantled a toxic culture and set a new standard for accountability. For Michelle, it was a bittersweet victory, but one that gave her hope for a better future. Not just for herself, but for anyone who might face similar injustices. The aftermath of Marcus Thompson's dramatic intervention rippled far beyond the confines of that corporate office. It was a moment that transcended personal vindication and became a catalyst for broader societal reflection. For Michelle, it marked not just the end of a painful chapter, but also the beginning of a journey toward healing, empowerment, and advocacy. The events of those days would shape her life, and countless others, in ways she could never have anticipated. In the weeks following the firings, Michelle found herself at a crossroads. While Marcus's swift and decisive actions had brought justice to those responsible, The emotional scars from the incident lingered. She spent hours replaying the humiliation in her mind, questioning whether she should have handled things differently or stood up for herself more assertively. Yet amidst these doubts, something else began to take root within her, a growing determination to turn her pain into purpose. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about creating a world where no one else would have to endure what she had faced. With Marcus's unwavering support, Michelle decided to channel her experience into meaningful action. Together, they founded the Equity Forward Foundation, an organization dedicated to combating workplace discrimination and fostering environments of inclusivity and respect. The foundation aimed to address systemic issues like racism, sexism, and microaggressions by providing resources, education, and advocacy for marginalized professionals. From workshops on unconscious bias to mentorship programs for underrepresented groups, the initiative quickly gained traction as people across industries rallied behind its mission. Michelle took the lead on shaping the foundation's vision, drawing from her own experiences to craft impactful initiatives. One of the flagship programs was called Safe Spaces, which partnered with companies to establish confidential reporting systems for employees who experienced harassment or discrimination. These systems ensured that complaints were addressed, promptly and fairly, without fear of retaliation. Additionally, the foundation launched a certification program for businesses committed to fostering equitable workplaces. Companies that met rigorous standards of diversity, inclusion, and accountability earned the coveted Equity Seal, which served as a badge of honor and trust for both employees and consumers. But Michelle didn't stop there. Recognizing the power of storytelling, she began sharing her story publicly, first through interviews and op-eds, then through a memoir titled Rising Above, Turning Pain into Purpose. The book chronicled her journey from the moment she walked into that toxic office environment to the day her husband stormed in and changed everything. It explored themes of resilience, love, and the importance of standing up against injustice. Readers connected deeply with Michelle's vulnerability and courage, making the memoir a bestseller and further amplifying her message. As the foundation grew, so did its reach. Michelle traveled the country, delivering keynote speeches at conferences, universities, and corporate events. Her talks weren't just about her personal story. They were calls to action. She challenged audiences to examine their own biases, advocate for change within their organizations, and support colleagues facing discrimination. Her charisma and authenticity resonated with people from all walks of life, inspiring many to join the fight for equity. By the end of the first year, the Equity Forward Foundation had partnered with over 50 companies and trained thousands of employees, laying the groundwork for lasting transformation. Meanwhile, Marcus used his influence to amplify Michelle's efforts on a larger scale. Leveraging his status as a billionaire entrepreneur, he pressured other executives and industry leaders to adopt stricter anti-discrimination policies. He introduced a groundbreaking initiative called Accountability Pledges, wherein CEOs publicly committed to holding themselves and their teams accountable for fostering inclusive cultures. Those who refused to sign the pledge faced potential repercussions, including boycotts led by Marcus's vast network of supporters. Within months, dozens of major corporations had joined the movement, signaling a shift in how businesses approached workplace ethics. Marcus also invested heavily in technology designed to combat discrimination. He funded the development of AI-powered tools capable of detecting biased language in emails, performance reviews, and hiring processes. These innovations helped identify problematic behaviors before they escalated, giving companies actionable insights to improve their practices. Additionally, he established scholarships for students from underrepresented backgrounds pursuing careers in STEM fields, ensuring that future generations would have greater access to opportunities traditionally dominated by privilege. For Michelle, the most rewarding aspect of this new chapter was seeing tangible change unfold. Former colleagues reached out to express gratitude for the foundation's work, while strangers shared stories of how her advocacy had inspired them to speak out against injustices in their own lives. Social media campaigns like Tawaru Stand with Michelle and Equity Forward trended globally, uniting voices in solidarity against discrimination. What started as a deeply personal battle had evolved into a collective movement fueled by hope and determination. Yet Michelle remained grounded throughout it all. Despite her newfound fame and influence, she stayed true to her roots, prioritizing authenticity and humility. She often reminded herself and others that real change required patience and persistence. There were setbacks along the way, of course. Some critics dismissed her efforts as performative activism, while others accused her of using her husband's wealth to gain leverage. But Michelle refused to let negativity derail her mission. Instead, she leaned on her faith, her family, and her unshakable belief in the power of good to overcome evil. On a personal level, the experience deepened Michelle and Marcus's bond. Their marriage had always been strong, but navigating such a challenging situation together brought them even closer. Marcus admired Michelle's strength and resilience, while Michelle cherished his unwavering support and willingness to use his platform for good. They became role models not just for their professional achievements, but also for their partnership, a testament to what can be accomplished when two people unite in love and purpose. Looking back, Michelle realized that the incident at work, as devastating as it was, had ultimately set her on a path she was meant to walk. It forced her to confront her fears, embrace her voice, and step into a leadership role she might never have considered otherwise. More importantly, it reminded her of the importance of community and collective action. No one should face discrimination alone, and through the Equity Forward Foundation, Michelle ensured that others would always have someone in their corner. By the time the second anniversary of the incident rolled around, the impact of Michelle and Marcus's efforts was undeniable. Workplace cultures were shifting, conversations about equity were becoming normalized, and individuals felt empowered to demand better treatment. The ripple effects extended far beyond the walls of that once toxic office, proving that even in the darkest moments, light can emerge if we choose to shine it. For Michelle, this was only the beginning. She envisioned a future where workplaces weren't just diverse, but genuinely inclusive, where everyone, regardless of race, gender, or background, could thrive without fear of prejudice or mistreatment. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly present challenges, she faced it with the same grace, courage, and determination that had carried her thus far. After all, she knew better than anyone that every ending holds the promise of a new beginning, and hers was just getting started.